Coming to you live from my brother's apartment where the Wi-Fi is good. Not my apartment where the Wi-Fi is bad. It's WrestleZone. Yes, another WrestleZone podcast, the WrestleZone Daily, streaming you live here on Facebook. You can get it on YouTube and, of course, the podcast. Subscribe to WrestleZone. Search WrestleZone Radio. It comes up as WrestleZone Radio on Apple Podcasts, but just WrestleZone everywhere else. If you're watching the show, you can see that big WZ red and black logo up in the corner looking like the Wolfpack in 1996. And then you see that. That's where our podcast is. We put out tons of free content, 4 episodes of the daily every single week, pop-up interviews. We just spoke with Chris Jericho. Just last week. A really great interview. If you're an AEW fan, you have to listen to that. If you're a fan of Kiss, the band Kiss, you have to listen to that. We talked about his brand new band, Quarantine. Several new faces jumping in here with us, and we do have breaking news, and it is not good, about the WWE. Robert, what do we have? Robert DeFilis in Tampa, Florida. Jesse Cage joining us from the First Match podcast as well. We'll talk to him in a few minutes, but Robert, let's just get right into the news. The story is not good.
Yes, as we know, there was a positive COVID-19 test from a WWE Performance Center talent that has not been seen on TV. There's also rumors that WWE completely banned the wearing of face masks. A new report from John Alba says they were not told that they couldn't wear masks. However, that WWE said, hey, listen, we have them 6 feet apart, so face masks weren't required. It is what it is. This is a very touch and go situation, as is everything with COVID. But WWE feels they're doing things by the books, and should everything go right with all the testing they've done today, as they've canceled tapings today, if the testing comes back and everybody's good, then they will resume tomorrow, presumably.
So it is a tense situation. This is not the first time that WWE's dealt with a positive case response. Now, it's worth noting with this, we just know that it's a positive test. We don't know if this is someone who is asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic, or actually dealing with symptoms. The same doctor their associate medical director, noted that they haven't seen anyone else present symptoms. So that is something they've seen with the temperature checks and the screenings that they do of people coming into the Performance Center, something they've been doing since March, something they did for WrestleMania. They were taping WrestleMania right up to stay-at-home orders that you guys are dealing down with in Florida. I'm up in Chicago. And those were coming into place right as WrestleMania was being taped. And they were going right up to the window to get WrestleMania taped and get it ready to go for a 2-night presentation. And they did it on 2 nights so they can keep everyone spread out. So there is some extreme things they're doing. But on the surface, everyone's just going to bash WWE and say, see, this is what you get. This is what you get for having people there. But then you see the same thing is well, here is WWE doing what the state told them to do. So, I mean, Jesse, you're in Tampa. Yeah, you're enrooted. You know the wrestling world. You've been talking to in the past few weeks many of the big people in wrestling, and you've been around the business. Florida is a hub for wrestling. It is the suburbs of wrestling.
Absolutely, right? Especially Tampa, dude.
And they go out to the gated communities to just talk the biz. But what is the word in Florida? I mean, WWE's there, AEW's there, while all of this stay-at-home order closures and everything. And now Florida is saying, Major League Soccer, come on down here. NBA, come on down here. But the cases are going up.
We're wide open, man. Right now, there really is no restrictions. You can go out and do what you need to do. There's no mandatory mask order in place, which they're talking about starting to make that happen again, but I don't know that it will. I was at a bar this past weekend, and we were talking off the air a little bit ago. It's really that fine line of trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. You take all this information. One person's like, well, cases are going up, and someone's like, well, yeah, but testing is going up, so that's why now asymptomatic, maybe you can't spread it. It's just all this nonsense and trying to kind of grasp it. And I think Florida just finally said, look, man, everybody go out. Before it was keep the 6 feet, on the beaches. Mm-hmm. I went by the beach. I had lunch down there on the beach the other day. It was not 6 feet.
It's not.
So, I mean,
and Robert, you've been telling me for a long time, and mind you, this is just Robert in Tampa, and Jesse, you're in Tampa as well. A couple hours away, you're in Orlando. Orlando is a hub for people to travel into. It's one of the most trafficked airports in the country. And you have Disney there, and Disney wants to have some form of being open, limited, whatever they want to refer to it. And they got 70,000 people there. Mm-hmm. You have, media production. You have a lot of ESPN down there as well. So it's there is this sense of Florida feeling like we could cut ahead of California and New York, these other big media markets, and pull in some big brands that people are going to watch and look at the tax revenue we could get from that. And also, you guys have a different tax setup here, too. So there is an appeal for that. And there is a demand to get people back into some form of service-related, entertainment-related industry. That's a lot of what Florida's built on. So I understand Florida's pressure to do that. And so we're bringing in this political element here. But what do you think how WWE's handled this? And then we'll talk about AEW, because as we talk about this, there's one person that got this. They had someone 2 months ago, but thankfully the taping schedule worked out, where you came up asymptomatic, they were exposed to somebody, and they got an asymptomatic test, and we never found out who that person was. People tried to say it was Corey Graves, but that was squashed quickly. So this is another situation where I don't think we're going to find out who this person is easily if we do find out who they are. And honestly, I don't think it is scary, but it's not as scary as someone you've seen on TV and someone is in the ring.
Well, this test in particular is somebody that you haven't seen on TV. I do believe the first test they said was somebody who isn't an in-ring performer, but I don't know if they clarified whether or not we'd seen that person on television. The thing is, you can't talk about this without getting some form of political here, because, the governor has been very pro-Trump. By the way, Trump has handled everything. Trump himself has named Vince McMahon as an advisor in reopening the country, which is just
the great Vince McMahon, the great guy, the greatest everybody.
Absolutely bizarre.
There was donations and money made the week that they allowed wrestling to come back. I mean, so it's hard not to get political and like, well, money changed hands somewhere.
Over $1 million. Like, there's a lot of political discussion to be had here. That being said, listen, everybody's going to want to attack WWE because they are the machine.
Sure.
I feel that the statements that are being put out, like the one they put out to John Alba that says, well, hey, listen, we had people 6 feet apart and they're not around the in-ring talent, so they weren't required to wear masks. It still sounds like you're being very, hey, our shields are up. You can't come for us because we're doing
literally have
what the government said.
Robert, they literally have. They have shields up. They have hockey boards up. I've been saying this. Jesse, what do you think of this? Those hockey boards are staying up. When they start doing shows again?
I mean, we were just, my wife and I were just talking about that the other night. I was like, it has to, but I do like, really reinforce this thing so we can pound on them really good.
Yeah.
Really get into it, make some noise. But, to their credit, though, you got to think of the amount of people that have been in and out of the PC. Now, we've only heard of 2 people. I mean, who knows if there's more, again, who really knows? But to give them credit for the amount of people that have been in and out there over the last couple months, 2 is not a horrible percentage of people.
No.
So they are doing something right. But again, you hear all the rumors. Are they really testing? Are they just doing temperature checks? What's actually happening? So again, it's that 2 sides of, as a wrestling fan, I was really happy to see that wrestling was still happening. Yes, it's a totally different situation. It's a totally different product when you watch it that way. And I've been talking to some of the boys about that, and kudos to them. And
it is, and it's an incredible challenge.
Yeah,
just for the rest of the boys. We include the women in that. When you say the boys,
absolutely.
But I mean, like, even the production crews. Like, how do you operate in this circumstance? How do you do this? Like, and you've seen some of those cameramen. They cut. You can sometimes see it, and they're wearing a mask.
Yeah.
So, but it's weird to see people in the crowd not wearing it. If it does it turn the show off? I don't think it does. You're going to see some independent wrestling shows pop up this summer, and they're going to be outside. They're going to have some different elements.
This week.
This week, we're going to see some as well. We know there's drive-in wrestling shows are going to be around, and so there'll be different things here. And we've been talking about this for months now. WWE and AEW were in the position where they had to do something. Like, they were the ones that had the money, the resources to be able to go and do something right away. But then we look at Ring of Honor, and we look at MLW, and obviously New Japan, because they were much closer to the original outbreak there, and how the adjustments they've made. The weird thing is, I don't see anyone complain when the shows exactly come back or have made these alterations, or at least in the sense of you should stop, you shouldn't even be doing a show. I haven't heard enough of that. I heard enough of WWE should not run a stadium show with fans. Okay, that's cemented. But now are we at the point where it should just be full stop? I don't see that happening.
I don't think it can. Not from a WWE standpoint, I don't think, especially with you know the big Fox deal and all that stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure to continue to deliver new content. Now, they would be in a way better position than anybody else if they had to run older content, which we saw them do a lot more of when they first started this. You know, showing the Royal Rumble stuff,
they were running like a full Royal Rumble match on Raw when this started. Yeah,
right. Which again, I mean, to try to adjust to an audience to still get to see a crowd and, you know, that back and forth, I think that was a smart thing to do. So I think they would be in a position to run a lot of older stuff. But still, man, I mean, I don't know what that contract is with Fox. I have no idea, you know,
it is
how much live they need.
I've talked to you about maybe about a half a dozen people are aware of the details of that deal. It is one of the most lucrative and more comprehensive media deals they've ever signed. And comprehensive in the sense of everyone understands what needs to be delivered here.
Right.
And also WWE is offering something that they can't get out of other partners that give them content, in the sense of we're giving you first run content every single week. So they're not getting that out of a Masked Singer. They're not getting it out of other shows, and they're getting a live audience that tunes in for something every week, which, you know, this from working in radio, a live audience is worth something that they've never been worth more before. You give me 12 live listeners, live viewers, they are worth 100 people that watch the show on demand. They're worth a lot more to advertisers. And so when everyone complains about the ratings, I was like, well, look what this is still a live audience. You can't guarantee that with these other shows.
Right.
So there is a demand for them to produce content. I wonder how they're going to move forward. And obviously we're going to find out in the next 24 hours, hopefully, that no one else has been exposed. If they have been exposed, what does that mean? Do we not see, we've had Robert, how many weeks now have we had the trainees kind of around the hockey boards in the ring and stuff?
I think a good 3 weeks, a good 3 weeks.
And it was something that you and I loved this when they introduced it. It added a whole new element to the show. I think a lot of fans were kind of responding well to it. But what's your take on that now? Are we going to pull away from it?
It definitely does. And I want to add this little tidbit that WWE has sent out reports saying talent has been tested from the morning up to 2 p.m. So right about now,
okay,
about 2:43 Eastern. So
they're
right
very hands-on with this today, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it's like something I've been working in the wrestling media for 2 years. This is like something I've not seen with the amount of hands-on effort WWE is putting here. Mojo Rawley put out a video of himself getting tested. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more talent do that. But how do I feel about there being fans there? It's always going to be testy. But if you're going to crap on WWE, is it time to crap on AEW? Is it time to crap on,
Robert? Because here's the thing, Jesse. Every show, people say, I said this I got a tweet this week saying that I was horny for WWE. I was horny for them because I just call people on these arguments all the time, and I kind of poke holes on them. And I had someone tell me I was the Fox News of wrestling media. I was like, come on.
That's hardcore, man. That's hardcore.
That's a little much. That's a little much.
Is Kevin likes to maintain a very positive outlook in general. So he's always
I don't leap to the worst possible conclusion, I don't use the word Vince on a first name basis referring to a billionaire I've never met. I don't do that. So then people get mad at me for it because I'm just you say what I want you to say. Yes, Jesse, at some point we got it. Robert, you're right. At some point AEW's got to be under the same scrutiny, right?
And not only that, but let's talk about the shows that are running, and bless them for doing that. The GCWs, the IWA Mid-South, there are fans who are really ready to get to these shows, and you better believe, as packed as they can be, they will be. Mm-hmm. So it's not only, hey, WWE as the corporate machine is running these shows. There's a demand for this. There is a belief, not by everybody who's in America, but there's a belief by a good percentage of people of, I'm over this, I'm done with this, I just want to get on with regular life, and so be it. And I just don't want to see that come back to harm us, because Florida has had tremendous spikes since reopening. How do you combat that? We were talking about maybe they start mandating face masks. There won't be, well, if you want to, it's going to be a mandatory thing like it is in New York. It's just going to be constant. How do we balance this new normal?
But could you imagine them telling people they've got to go back in quarantine again, especially us here in Florida? Could you? Because you've already you've let us out. You've let us out of the cage.
It's gonna be anarchy.
Couldn't imagine.
And it's like, let's not forget, we're already dealing with another separate issue entirely that has evoked a lot of emotion,
and also getting a lot of people out of the house.
And so you put people back in quarantine, and it's gonna be a mess on every side. So I think there is a tremendous pressure to not do that. I hear that as long as the hospital numbers stay controllable, that won't be necessary.
Well, that's when they talked about flattening the curve. It was never about that. I mean, the flattening the curve was about making sure hospitals were still available, right? It was never about making it so COVID didn't exist, because that was never going to be a thing. It was
making it so we could manage it.
Right.
So we could manage what we were dealing with. The pressure, though, on AEW seems like they've been absolved a lot of the same questions that we ask of WWE. And part of it is WWE is the industry leader. They are. I don't know if people like hearing that. They are. Okay. They have a lot of TV. They have billions of dollars they get for their content. Many of you, the first thing you ask me about is WWE, not AEW. Not to say there's nothing wrong with them, but they have a lot of financial resources, and also they just have resources in terms of facility. The Daily Center, where they've been running their television, majority of it, and they got out of Florida for a little bit and went to a training facility that they somehow say is in Texas, but we know is in Georgia. So I don't. That's something.
It's in parts unknown, Kevin. Please.
It's in parts unknown. But then you've had some people say it was in Texas when we know for a fact it was in Norcross, Georgia.
No. They've confirmed that it's Georgia. So whoever said Texas is just maybe geographically unaware of things. I don't know.
Or want you unaware of things.
Right.
But that's another thing is AEW's been open about that. Like, they have fans trying to come to shows. All right. They've had fans trying to come to shows, and they've alluded, and you've seen it, and we saw it at Double or Nothing. There were people at Daily Center who were not wrestlers around the ring, and they were in the seats. And some people say, oh, well, that's just wrestlers' friends. We heard this now with WWE, that they had non-trainee people present at the tapings.
I think Alvarez tried to say, Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer tried to say, well, some of those are just the actual diehards that had to sign some paperwork saying they wouldn't be held liable. That's another thing. As we get forward here, are you going to feel comfortable signing paperwork every time you want to go to an event?
If you're going to Disney now, I've seen it. If you're going to Disney Springs, which was the first part of the Disney facility that opened up in Orlando, the screening process is strict. They take your temperature. If your temperature is past a certain point, they make you sit down for 5 minutes, and they take it again, or they send you home. There's big posters when you come in saying you understand the liability that you are taking here by entering. Like you're saying it.
Universal's doing the same exact thing. That's, man, they're going to have a really problem. I mean, it's hot now. And as it gets hotter, taking people's temperatures, it's just not going to work. Everybody's 100 degrees. Everybody.
Yeah, you can't take somebody's temperature in this heat. It's already 100 degrees.
You're sweating balls the second you get off the monorail, man. It is what it is.
We have some fans texting in here, obviously, about it and sending your messages and different things like that. Don't forget to share the link as well. If you're enjoying the show, tag your wrestling buddies and all that good stuff. Johan says, do we know the name of the person that is tested positive? No. I always wonder why that's so important to people. The things we do know is this person is not a NXT superstar. You've not seen them on television. They are a trainee in the Performance Center. So there's a possibility they were in the crowd around the ring, 6 feet away from people, which would mitigate some of the risk to people in the ring, the referee, some of the production crew, at least a little bit. And we don't know whether this person is symptomatic, pre-symptomatic, or asymptomatic. And there's a difference in all those things. Symptomatic would be the worst one, right?
And we may never know. Let's be clear.
We may never know. And also there's HIPAA laws, guys. There's laws about these type of things. That if somebody
You're worried about the law right now, Kevin. It's not about the law. Like, We're about the line.
Thank you.
Where's OSHA? What is happening right now?
Yeah. Where is OSHA just with wrestling in general? If OSHA was involved with wrestling in general, no one's doing any moves. Everyone's just thumb wrestling.
I feel like the clock turned to 2020 and we just immediately hit like cyberpunk dystopian future. Like this, it's just been a mess from minute one about, and what a weird year. And going forward, it's going to continue to be this new normal. And who knows at this point, it's weird. Just yesterday we were reporting PW Insiders like WWE wants to run full live events by August. And now, maybe not so much.
But I mean that's hoping for the best, but we've known that for a long time. They wanted to be able to do something in Boston for WrestleMania. We know it, or excuse me, SummerSlam, and they were already booked in the book for SummerSlam. Boston, Massachusetts says we don't want anything past this number, which not an arena until Labor Day. Well, maybe we put it into September, and then it's September Slam or something, right? So that was talked about. We haven't heard anything else about that now. But AEW, I mean, you had Cody on the media calls before Double or Nothing a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, saying maybe we can do some events this year with limited fans, and so he was kind of tenuous about it. With AEW, I think the benefit with them is they have this big open air venue and people don't scrutinize them nearly as much. WWE, it looks like a closed set. So your perception is, well, that must be more dangerous, right? That must, if there is something in the air. Jesse, do you think AEW is getting the pass here?
I mean, somewhat, because they're the darlings, right? I mean, they're doing the different thing from the WWE. Even before this, obviously, they're trying to be this different whole presentation, which is amazing. Actually, I'm a huge AEW fan. I'm also still a huge WWE fan, and probably watch old WCW more than anything. But outside of that,
where does WCW reside in this? What is
they're doing it right. They're not doing anything.
How is Juventud Guerrera's health? Is what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the health of Juventud.
But I mean, they're definitely getting a buy. But I think you're right, though. I think the presentation is different, and I think just they got a buy with the fanless crowds anyway because of the presentation. There's how that looked, being able to still come out at Daly's Place with pyro and all that stuff, and so they're doing such a better job. Were they? I mean, perceptually, sure, because it still looked like the wrestling we're used to seeing, and not just the Performance Center wrestling or an NXT type deal, which is not bad.
It looked bigger. Aesthetically, it looked bigger, even though there was no fans there.
And it makes it feel bigger. And so I think in general, it's like, oh, they're doing this better for some reason. And then that's going to leak into everything. But yes, they're definitely getting a pass. I thought it was great that they were the first to have some people at ringside, have some of the boys out there and the girls and, the production crew and their cousins, whoever the hell is out there. Because it made wrestling easier to watch. It's just easier to watch when somebody is doing something in the crowd.
Robert?
Now, you both work in radio and you've done stuff with rock media. You understand the idea, the very concept of counterculture is already working in the favor of All Elite Wrestling. So there's always going to be that. You know what I mean?
Robert, that is a very good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been their MO since day one. Oh, well, we're not going to be WWE. We're going to have, wrestling that you care about. And we're going to care about our wrestlers. We rescued Matt Hardy from obscurity, and we've given him the creative freedom because
obscurity of being on national television. Obscurity.
One of the biggest superstars in the last 3 decades.
Yeah. The obscurity of walking to one of the largest reactions that anyone can remember in a stadium. There was some real obscurity there.
The idea of play your music your way. That's Cody's whole thing.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think the fact is they had people around the ring weeks ago, and no one gave them any blind eye to it whatsoever. They've had matches with a lot of people in the ring. That's fine. And they're doing testing and they've been open. And I think the thing about the AEW gets a pass is they've been saying, we're testing. And with WWE screenings. We're screening. The thing is, WWE doing testing, but because they're such a big company and they're publicly traded, they have to follow more health protocols that they have to file, and a lot more of this. And Jesse, you and I have talked about this. Like, the festivals got weird about this a couple of years ago with the SARS outbreak that we had maybe like 6 years ago. That was like, there was some protocol I had to sign when I went into a place. And that was SARS. And it wasn't like a huge outbreak. And we weren't dealing with nearly an ounce of what we were dealing with now. And I wasn't even like doing much, but I just signed waivers and different things like that. If you go in here and this happens, this is what you're exposed to. And there wasn't nearly as much of threat. And obviously we haven't dealt with nearly as much tragedy as we had with COVID-19 now. There is a level of that, but it's based on severity and also how much you can put out there. I think I can talk about it. It was 10 years ago now. Somebody wants to come and be angry at me because I was at backstage at a Godsmack concert and they were worried about SARS. Calm down, you know? But
I'm a little worried about what else you contracted backstage at Godsmack.
All right, simmer down.
Whoa. I hope Sully Erna finds you at your house and punches you in the mouth.
And he can sneak up on you. He's just a wee little lad. He'll just sneak right up on you.
So it is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. A lot of people already screaming to the heavens about what this is and what it could be. Everyone's stretching into now 2021. I have a lot of people bringing that up. I can tell you, I know of some other big rock. Jesse, you and I know this. Like, the entire festival season for music is pretty much off the books now.
Yeah,
and it's a bad time for live entertainment.
If they
really
the
bad
NFL, man. If we don't get an NFL season, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I'm going to be broken. Yeah. Broken if that doesn't happen. Listen, hockey from Florida, man. You really don't care.
Yeah, are they going to do games with what do you think? Is NFL going to do games without fans?
Yeah, it's funny. I was reading that Fox was saying that they've already experimented with piping in crowd noise for when big moments happen and having an actual digital crowd.
So it's the greatest game ever.
Exactly. We'll have cut screens from the bottom of the pile. It'll be amazing.
Hey, you know what? I think the crowd really overreacted for that first down. Like, it was a first down, but I mean, like,
well, somebody hits the wrong button. That was the touchdown cheer. Come on.
You hit the touchdown. Really? Come on.
I've been some vintage Madden commentary. Like,
oh, yeah. Bring it. So who knows, man? Yeah, they seem hell bent on a season, which, again, this is where I pick and choose what I want to see happen. And of course, I want the NFL season to happen. I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan. I grew up in South Florida, although I've been in Tampa for 18 years or something, 7, I don't know, a bunch of years. And I still drive down to all the games, to all the Dolphin games, and they were the first stadium, I guess, in the country to start this new cleaning protocol and how they're going to line people into the building and all this stuff. I'm like, well, that's cool in theory, but I just give me football, man. If it's safer just to have the players out there, and then that's not to put the players at risk just because of my entertainment. Dance, get in there, gladiators. But I want to see it. I want
the machine,
right? Yeah. Make me happy as I sit at home in my mask.
Yeah,
But if it's better to not have a crowd, then Fox get on it and digitally insert a crowd and whatever, man.
When are we going to start just having full-on hologram crowds?
September.
They might be moving that up. I mean, Elon Musk has some time on his hands. You don't know what you're going to end up getting.
Today's Chicago Bears fans are brought to you by the great people at Microsoft. They're streaming to us right now. They're watching at a VFW in the suburbs. So here you are, Yeah. So it's a crazy time, and I just honestly hope everyone's safe. I was telling Robert about this. I do stand-up. I'm doing stand-up comedy shows on Thursday and Friday in Valparaiso, Indiana. Indiana, not nearly as strenuous a situation as Chicago, where I live. People are going to be 6 feet apart. But what if I go to the show and there's 90 people there? And I was told there was 50, or 60 or something like that. So there is that, and I trust everyone. You kind of, and this is the thing with WWE, the people that are performing there, they kind of have to trust the process. Like, there's no way to go into a situation like this and say, I'm going to fly in a plane and I'm just going to be nervous all the time. You kind of have to just trust where you're going. And with WWE, AEW, wrestlers, sports leagues, entertainment, you kind of have to trust the facility and the team around it to say, all right, we can catch something here. But at some point, you are taking a risk. Well, you go to the grocery store now, you're taking a risk.
I think everything is a calculated risk. Like I said, I went out this past weekend. We had some friends in town and wanted to take them around to a couple spots because things are open back up here in Tampa and St. Pete. So again, we were careful and it was very calculated kind of where we went. But at the same time, I went to my favorite brewery and we were 6 feet apart. We were in the back of the bar and doing that whole thing. But it's all calculated at this point because if you're allowed to go out, you don't have to go out. You can stay home if you choose to do that. But so when you go out, it's a calculated risk. I knew going out that there's a chance that I get sick. Again, trying to be careful, I think it's hysterical still that we have to washing our hands because we should have always been washing our hands. Who are these animals that were just taking dump skis and not washing them? Stop it, man. Wash your damn hands.
There are so many things from this that are going to follow afterwards, for some time. But
it's like 9/11, right?
Yeah.
So 9/11 changed travel permanently. What we're used to now as just normal is very foreign 15 years, 20 years ago. That's just how things work. And we will get to a place where this is normal again and we won't be afraid. But right now, as things aren't fully eradicated, you're going to start seeing these spikes and you're going to see issues like what WWE is having today. And eventually we'll all move past it, and be in a better place. And life will be whatever normal is, but it's the process of getting there that is so exhausting in every way possible.
And also a lot of it is just we have to wait for a vaccine. And with vaccine, I know we're so far out of wrestling right now, but this is just such a prevalent thing. It affects every inch of our lives right now. When we get a vaccine, the doors are just gonna be open. Everyone's gonna start booking everything, and your bar is gonna be full, and your restaurant's gonna be full, and people are gonna go to the theater. And then there's gonna be another outbreak there because the vaccine's not gonna show up at everyone's doorstep in a day. All right, it's probably gonna take a year to vaccinate the world, right? So then you're gonna have more outbreaks.
And by the way, the anti-vaxxers go to the back of that line, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anti-vaxxers, you're in the back, man.
You don't get the right to the vaccine because you didn't want it.
Oh,
and how long are you going to be?
Cherry pick what you want. No, I don't think so, man.
And everyone's going to be like, they're asking me if I'm vaccinated now when I go to a Walmart? Yeah, we're gonna ask you that. Sorry, so there's that part of it here. Covering a bunch of different things that we did on last night's post-Raw, post-Backlash episode. It was quite the episode with Brittany and Fiora from Rest Friends. Go check it out if you haven't done it already. Once again, subscribe to the podcast. Chris Jericho is in the podcast talking to us about Quarantine, his new 80s Kiss cover band. A lot of fun there. Worth checking out. If you enjoy the fun that we're having right now, we can get into it. But let's talk about another podcast. Jesse, your show, First Match, a very unique concept. There's a lot of wrestling content for people online right now. And online is where people are going for a bunch of different things. People have come to us and asked us, and I was like, I've never seen this person jump into the chat before, right? So there is a demand for that, but what can you do that somebody else isn't doing? We try to do the live interaction thing and bring people's comments on screen while we're doing it. You have a great concept. The one-on-one interview, you got to do something different. You're focusing on the first match. That's the podcast. You have 4 episodes out right now. Mickey James on the most recent one. Where did you come onto this idea?
I've been working on a couple. I've started a kind of a podcast, my new podcast, Media Empire, after leaving radio. So I've been spinning through all these different ideas, and my agent's been working with me on a couple of them, and a couple are, getting sold and having some fun with that. And one of those got put on hold for a little bit due to stuff outside of my control. So I'm laying in bed. It's like 3:00 in the morning, and I had already started to kind of build the infrastructure for this other show. and I didn't want it to just go. I didn't, I'm like, just because somebody else is kind of holding it up right now, some red tape, let me do something else to stay relevant. Because as we know in entertainment, being in radio for, over 24 years, staying relevant is very important. And so I'm
Feed the beast.
Yeah,
that's why WWE is still putting on TV. Like if they stop doing something, then people think, oh, they went away, they're done.
That's exactly right. So I'm laying in bed one night and I just couldn't sleep because I was so frustrated about everything that was going on. Just in general, this is the middle of quarantine too. Just frustrated, and I was like, I've got to do something. And
be a lot of bad music written in this period. A lot of people a lot of bad songs getting written.
Yeah, my inbox is full of them. I know. Hey, dude, can you get me on the radio? No, I'm good. But so I was like, well, what can I do to still use all my wrestling connections and what gets me off? And I was like, I'm a big origin story guy. So I'm like, let's do the origin stories. So let's just go back to the very beginning and really start from where their love of wrestling came from, because that's a story for all of us. And it's something that's relatable if you're a wrestling fan. And even if you're not, it's something I love about this podcast. I feel like since we do that, it's not just strictly wrestling. People who are just into cool stories about people chasing their dreams are going to love the First Match podcast. Now, again, obviously, it's all, if you're a wrestling fan, it's really your wheelhouse. But what can I do to make it different, as you said? And I then woke up the next morning and I scoured the internet for anybody doing anything First Match wise, and I just didn't find anything. So
somebody beat me to this?
That's exactly right. So I reached out to a couple of my wrestling buddies, and LG Luke Gallows was one of the first guys. I was like, Drew, what do you think, man? Is this something that you would be into? He's like, I think that's a great idea. So just kind of did a pilot episode with LG, and that was the first episode we released. And it went great. People really responded well to it. And, as it's kind of evolved, having the Blue Meanie on, who is just an amazing storyteller, and Corey Graves, Matt's been a buddy of mine for years and years. Mickey James, another one. So just kind of leaning on these people that I knew. Nick Aldis coming up this week. So, just really getting into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of where they became wrestling fans, why they became a wrestling fan, and then really walking up and where was their head out during that first match. And then obviously that's going to go on, and we do go a little bit deeper into their careers and try to do some high spots or whatnot of the career. But I've always, from an interview perspective, I've never been the tour bus guy. Hey, tell me about your tour bus. Because nobody gives a crap, dude. Nobody, so we go and we try to go a little bit deeper go into the psyche. Like, we had a great conversation. Definitely listen to all of them, because I need to make some money. So please listen to all of them. But the Mickey James episode, we did like 15 minutes on ring psychology, and Mickey James is such a genius, and you'll really see. I mean, obviously, if you followed Mickey, you know that she's been able to develop characters like it's nobody's business. The way, whether it's the stalker or the whatever. I mean,
you talk about ring psychology. She's doing that now. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this. I mean, she's still involved with WWE, and has a little bit more of an agent producer role now than anything. And that a lot of people say, oh, that's such a downgrade. For some people that have been in the business a long, long time, they love that position. Okay, it's a great new way to challenge, especially people who have that mind, that sense of the fundamentals applying to a full-on story. And so when you see like a guy like a Dean Malenko and Arn Anderson, who were in similar positions for a long time, probably did that longer than when they were actually in the ring, it brings out this whole new skill set in people.
Right.
And it's unique that you get to talk to somebody like that, who we could see Mickey wrestle again. I'm not writing that off. And
I do believe we will. I believe she's injured.
I agree too. I don't think her wrestling boots are on the shelf forever.
No way.
And she had a pretty harsh injury recently as well. So I mean, you get that different perspective now with somebody who is able to help people have those first moments, those breakthrough moments and stuff like that too. Is there something maybe you learned about somebody you're like, oh wow, I never knew that? Because you're bound to learn something about someone you didn't know, right?
Well, it's funny because you start learning these random tidbits from, again, these first couple have been some friends of mine. So I think I know everything about, Jericho, who I get to, hang out with, or LG, or let me keep dropping names. I'll pick him up. But, these are guys that I hang out at bars with, right? So you think these things, or Matt, talking about one of his first names, Sterling Spice. And he's like, oh, it's a great name. I'm like, was it? I mean, he's like, well, perspectives change. I'm like, obviously they do.
Jesse,
that's a great name
for
a different
Venn diagram. Robert, we've brought this up. We've learned this new Venn diagram. Okay, on one hand, we have bad wrestling name, right? On other hand, we have what sounds like a porn star name that you would hear, like reading AVN magazine. So when we blend them together, it tends to be the same thing.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot.
Dax Harwood, among other things.
Yes. That was the one that I heard. I was like, "Whoa, dude!" Okay, all right.
So yeah,
where's
man,
the OnlyFans?
A lot of cool little interesting tidbits kind of get pulled up, and the funny with the name thing. That's definitely something I ask all of them, because back in I wanted to be a wrestler. I got to train with Dean Malenko for a short amount of time in the late '90s. I left. I was already doing radio. I started doing radio when I was in high school. Went to college for a couple years, still doing radio. But I was just a wrestling fan since I was a kid. I'm like, well, screw it, dude. I'm gonna go train and see what happens. Unfortunately, my knees suck and my back suck. I've had multiple knee surgeries and herniated discs and the whole deal. So I didn't last all that long. But I had a lot of fun getting my ass kicked, and stretched around there. So, but
if you enjoy getting your ass kicked, I think that's a prerequisite to be a professional wrestler.
Well, we had Dave Heath was in there, Gangrella's in there, and he's one of our main teachers, which he was great. Luna was there. Eddie Guerrero came in a couple of times, which was awesome. So just that love of wrestling kind of guided right on through. So.
What an eclectic bunch, too. Luna, Eddie Guerrero, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's gotta be so intimidating. That's gotta be so intimidating when they come into like the danky warehouse that you're just sweating your ass off in, just trying to learn bumps, and it's like, oh great, the person I see on TV is here, and they're gonna see if I'm good at this.
Luna walks up, she's like, hey, I'm a Luna. I'm like, I know who you are. I love you. She was great, man. She was great.
And Jesse, we've had the same thing where we now work with these big rock bands that we admire, and some bands that are new and developing and breaking, and they will introduce themselves, and you kind of have to like, yeah, I know how you are, and then you're just like, oh no, yes, I'm professional, yes, yes, we're just gonna stand in this elevator and not acknowledge that you're Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, like stuff like that happens all the time. You do have to be professional about it, but you mentioned you get to drink with people though. You get to drink with people. Yeah. And when you drink with people, you get those stories that maybe don't end up on a podcast, or they do many years later after maybe the period of burn has been extended. Right. And you mentioned one, Luke Gallows, who is known for his drinking stories. Is known very well for his drinking stories. And is known, I've been told by multiple people, of fostering a certain character, an alter ego, if you will, that people got to see in Southpaw Regional Wrestling as Tex Ferguson. Yeah. And we got to see the same character as Sex Ferguson. It is my favorite comedy thing in wrestling, next to whatever Colt Cabana wants to do, is Sex Ferguson, and I enjoy it. I've shared the clip of him going off on people as Sex. How have you been exposed to the humor of wrestlers at that bar, that camaraderie? There's some stories you got. You've seen some things like this, and you get that other side of them when they're kind of their guard is down a little bit. It's
funny, when I was in Georgia, funny story. So Gallows he runs an indie fed up there in Georgia, and he was very back end of it now, but because of everything, now he can do whatever he wants. But he was doing this indie fed deal, and he would show up and do the autographs and the whole thing. It was great. So he's like, hey, do you want to come up and be Chris Masters' manager for a night? I was like, yeah, sure, man, it'll be great. Masters in town. Yeah. So I go up. We're in this little high school gym in the middle of Nowherevilles, Georgia. First pretty hot little crowd, which I'll give him credit for. It was pretty cool. But we're getting ready to leave, and we're walking through. We're just picking up some stuff. And Gala's like, "Hey, dude, meet me in the car." I'm like, "All right, cool." So me and my wife, Crystal, we go out. We get in the car. We're like 30 minutes down the road, and Gala looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, man, where's Masters?" And I was like, I don't know, man. And he goes, "Oh, shit, we left Masters." So we wanted to get to the bar so fast and so bad. We like hot-tailed it out of there, and we left Masters in the middle of Georgia in his high school gym. He jumped in the car with one of the ring boys and came over. Oh. I'm just like, are you kidding me? And it's funny because in the podcast, in the first match podcast I did with them, that was the first thing I'll start off. I'm like, my guest today has been known as blah 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 blah. And I go, but to me, he's the guy that we couldn't wait long enough to get to the bar that we had to leave Chris Masters at a high school gym in Georgia. But then, I mean, again, without getting too in depth on it, because once you're drinking, you're drinking with your buddies, right? You don't want to, give up too much. But I will tell you,
we were on Robert knows this. We were on air yesterday, and I got a text about stuff that was going on with things that dropped today, and not so much the COVID cases, but WWE trying to do shows later this summer. And so anyone who was watching or listening to the show yesterday, you're like, "Oh, what was that thing you got a text about?" That was what I got a text about. Okay, so that was it, and guess what? You found out about it. It's not a point. Oh, I knew before you did. It's okay, but there is this sense of, oh, you can't tell this story, but here I'll give you this one. like you do get that. You do. You can't talk about story A, B, and C, but go ahead, tell that we left Masters in a parking lot story if you want. So that's
the one you get.
yeah.
We just listen, man. I mean, I'll tell you this. There's not many people I've laughed with more than LG. That dude is, everything you hear about him is dead on 1,000%. With Jericho, if I get drunk with Jericho, we're singing Striper tunes, man. I mean, that's we turn in, it's ridiculous. Whether multiple times at New Year's Eve parties or, recently him and Jess got renewed their vows. So we got to go to that. It was the same thing. We're getting down to it, and a lot of boys are going, and we're singing Striper tunes. It's what happens. So to see Jericho in a full suit singing "Free to do what you want to," I mean, it's effing brilliant.
He is a joyful figure. He's a guy that doesn't like what he likes is what he likes, and he doesn't really have to make much attention. He doesn't have to really. He doesn't have to compromise much. He's truly a pirate ship guy. Literally, he's made a ship and he takes it out in the ocean.
And if you don't like it, he doesn't care.
No,
it's made him brilliant because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, don't worry. It's a cafeteria fun with him. All right. Well, if you don't like this part of me, here, go listen to my podcast.
You'll find something.
You know what? Though, but he's a guy who really should be what everybody aspires to be. He had goals. He hit every single one of those goals and almost at the top of the level. And he deserves to, have a little bit of fun every now and again.
Jesse, you and I had this conversation about I've had this conversation with other radio people, rather. Mm-hmm. You do radio. Like, how do you do stand-up? Like, why are you doing these other things if you're doing right? I was like, because I could do other things. Like, I'm only doing weekends on the radio. Doesn't mean on Saturday night I can't go tell jokes in front of somebody. Doesn't mean I can't do a wrestling podcast Monday through Thursday. So you're come on now. With the internet, you have so many options here. Yeah. Like you're not allowed to do all these different things here.
I just wish I could do what Jericho does and hit a home run every time.
Every time.
Everything he does.
This guy has the Midas touch. Yeah, he has absolutely Midas touch, and even stuff he has that didn't have he did some TV shows. He hosted a game show. I was like, he didn't just host a game show on a small network. Oh, network television. Yeah. He had a network TV show. Think about that.
You got to rock DWTS. You got that Dancing with the Stars action.
That's what I even forgot. I just remember he had the show with the conveyor belt where stuff fell off the building.
You're thinking about Downfall or something like
Downfall, which was a fun show.
Yeah. Robot Wars? Did he do Robot Wars?
He did do BattleBots or something. BattleBots. Jericho is just the guy.
He just does it. I texted him the other day. There's a movie coming out. I don't want to say what movie it is because I don't want to give it away. But there's a movie coming out that him and I had talked about. There's a sequel. We had talked about one of the previous ones, and I was like, "Oh, dude, check this out. This is going to be happening." And he wrote back, something to the effect of, "Oh, well, I already know because I may have something going on with that." I'm like, "You son of a bitch! He's just always doing something." So he never stops. He really never stops, and it's pretty incredible, actually.
Also a world champion wrestler.
Just on the side, just a
little side ski, just a little side ski deal.
Sony records this year, like Jericho is just the guy.
He is.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll have him on a First Match podcast coming up. I've already recorded it. I just don't. I'm still putting together the next. Got a lot in the can. So, but Jericho coming up probably the beginning of July.
And the cool thing about these are evergreen. See, the mistake that Robert and I made on our show is we're topical. You don't care what happened the last 3 days. You don't want to listen to our show. We're dum-dums. You guys got evergreen stuff. It's going to keep growing. Doesn't matter.
That's it, man.
Yeah. So you guys can check that out. Robert and I will be back with you tomorrow night after AEW and after NXT. I believe we're getting some form of NXT tomorrow. Hopefully everything's all right and everyone's okay as we find out more in the next 24 hours with that situation with WWE, which was very scary. And we'll find out more as it develops. Now, once again, Jesse, that podcast, First Match, is available on all the different podcast apps, correct?
Yeah, man. Wherever you get your podcasts, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever, man. Just put in First Match into anything you got and you'll find it.
Yeah, First Match, and look, you see Jesse Cage, that's one you're looking for. Okay,
that's it. That's
4 episodes out right now. Most recent one with Mickey James. The Luke Gallows one was very, very funny. Like in terms of like when you do your first episode of a podcast, there is this pressure, just like you do the first episode of a TV show,
right?
And like from the first 5 minutes, I'm like, this is gonna be great. I was listening it on a bike, and it was just great. It was very, very good times. And also, if you guys are coming over from the First Match podcast, give the old WrestleZone ski a good subscribe there. Thank you guys for supporting the show. We'll be back tomorrow night once again after NXT and Dynamite for you live viewers. And if you're watching live, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, share it, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. I did all the work. Okay, I said all the things I need to say. Robert, you're busy with Smart Out Moment and the other website. Go ahead.
I'm always talking into a microphone, and I fell into this gig. But yeah, Smart Out Moment. Every Wednesday we're putting out new content. We're gonna do a tier list ranking the entire wrestling roster or the entire WWE roster based on work rates. So that's going to be subjective as hell, and it's going to be fun.
That's not going to piss anyone off at a bar later, right? Right?
Not at all.
You hear these march through their tier lists.
And then, of course, you got Fightful.com. Sean is very busy. I will just say, go check out Fightful. Go subscribe to Fightful.
We're talking about him on a first name basis now. The editor-in-chief of a competing website that you work for that you have to bring up consistently. See, this is the thing, Jesse. I have to have dual custody with Robert here. All right, I have to share him with a man who threatened to have Robert attack me, all of the NWO, and spray paint their logo on my back.
Oh man,
they did. But I told
you, Robert.
Kevin is a little jealous at times. I told Kevin, I'm not in a polyamorous relationship with wrestling sites. I'm in a monogamous relationship with money. Okay?
Oh, there is that. It's hard to fault him for that.
That's just how it is. So go check out Fightful. Doing a lot of work over there based on everything that you guys are reading today. It's going to be a busy couple days over everywhere. So just keep checking out. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dude Felice. And
all right, guys, you can follow me at Kev Kellum, 101 WKQX, launching our Celebrate Goodness campaign. Now, what exactly is that? That's the radio station I work on, and we play alternative rock, but everyone's pretty stressed out right now. But someone's doing something good, all right? And you can go to 101WKQX.com, fill out the form, and you can leave a voicemail at the phone number we have there, and simply just tell us someone who's doing something good. Something simple as somebody who opens the door for you every time you see them, or is walk your dog, or everyone's kind of creeped out right now about everything. All right, but there's someone who's helping you, and maybe you're helping somebody else, and we want to share that on air. Go check it out. It's 101 WKQX, great alternative rock music. Jesse, I believe you're aware of that genre. And a little bit. We're not playing Godsmack, Robert. So apparently, just lay off, okay? All right, Yeah. Yeah. Get back. So go to 101wkqx.com, fill out the form, leave us a voicemail, and you may hear yourself on air with those feel good stories, man. We want to share them. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow night after Dynamite and NXT. Robert, when watching wrestling, they're supposed to do this thing, wrestling, even though the times are very challenging. What are they supposed to do?
I know, listen, times are super hard. It's hard to do this with anything in the world. But when you watch wrestling, because it's going to continue for you, you got to enjoy wrestling.